Hello everyone, it's Richard Lewis here again with another video. Today I'm going to be talking about probably the most requested story the past week that people want me to address. We're going to be delving back into the murky world of skins gambling. In fact, let me set the scene for you. It is the summer of 2016. A different world, actually. We haven't been cooped up in quarantine. I don't look like the wolf man. Lots of things were different back then. And one of the things that was different, if you were involved in the CSGO community, were there were skins casinos everywhere. But in round about July, end of June, there was a tipping point. We had multiple scandals break about the nature of these casinos. Most notably, you had the CSGO Lotto scandal with T. Martin and Syndicate. Of course, obviously, then that led to Phantom Lord with CSGO Shuffle. There was a few others along the way. You know, I want to say Mo with CSGO Diamonds as well. And basically what we found out was what we should have known the whole time. That was all fucking bullshit. It was all one big money-making scheme that was essentially designed to exploit naive people and, of course, inarguably targeted younger people that probably shouldn't be gambling at all, even thinking about it, using a currency that fell through a loophole. Now, originally, I was kind of on the fence about it. I didn't really have any strong feelings. My colleague, Sir Scoots, another esports veteran, was very adamant against it. And then when I started turning over stones and looking into it and looking at how these businesses were structured, I absolutely came into his line of thinking. And that was that basically, yeah, this is pretty fucking bad and needs to be shut down. Now, I won't bore you with a complete history of skins gambling. You can follow my channel for that. If you go back and look at my older videos, they're terribly produced. The overlays, dog shit. The camera's just a webcam. But all the info, and sometimes it's zoomed in. I got a fucking Prometheus head. But all the information is in there. It is a pretty comprehensive history of everything that went on. Now, in there was a guy called Unethical. Unethical is a forgotten dude. He's the forgotten man of esports reporting. He sort of came out of nowhere, broke the CSGO Lotto story with T. Martin and Syndicate, which is crazy because I often get that misattributed to me. I didn't break that story. I signal boosted it and then went on to break other stories. But he actually broke that one. I think he's deleted a lot of his content now or changed channels or something weird happened. But I don't think he's involved in esports reporting anymore. So a lot of people have forgotten about a lot of the good work he did. And one of the big stories he was focusing on after the CSGO Lotto was, did FaZe, a very popular Call of Duty esports organization, did they own a skins gambling website? And the one that he presumed that they owned was called CSGO Wild. Now, it was a bit of a mix-up because there was a lot of evidence that was presented publicly, a lot of ties, but there was nothing hardcore, there was nothing condemning, and in the end, they denied ownership. FaZe Banks, FaZe Rain, they said they were never owners. The owners of CSGO Wild came out and said, no, they're just advertising it, they're just influencers. Well, there was a podcast the other day, and FaZe Banks went on this podcast and started talking about CSGO Wild in 2020 as if he did own it and as if he did run it and as if he was making money off it, which was way above and beyond what they said at the time. I'll have to put my headset on and ruffle my wonderful head of hair to get into this, but what I'll do is I'll play you the clip so you can hear Banks in his own words, and I'm going to listen to this here. This is the podcast he was on. It's the Bad News podcast, so, you know, which is under society and culture in the Apple's podcast area. If you want to go find it yourself, it's episode 11 entitled "We All Have a Double Life." And how they got onto this topic, well, as you'll hear, is they were talking about, you know, young entrepreneurs and people that have made a success of themselves. And Banks goes on to tell the story of how CSGO Wild got created, and along the way, unfortunately, incriminates himself. So, typical Banks in a lot of ways. So we'll listen to the clip. I think it's at starts at about 36
where you want to
minutes.
exist. I would say it's like,
Well, all of this
shit. That shit times out of 10 don't.
successful dude I know.
Yeah,
And
man.
I know a lot of successful like guys, and their stories are great, but a lot of them are double majors from God knows what, and they did this, and they have their MBA in this. But the way he did it,
He doesn't know how to read.
movie. That's a movie.
Yeah, no, you guys want to hear some movie shit with some shit like that? These kids, Zach Gage, they're these twins, and my buddy Drew. These are the guys who I first initially moved into this house with in LA. They're all right now probably like 22, 23-ish, around that area. But they all dropped out of high school, all three of them. One of them's from Virginia. The other two kids are from Canada. And we actually have a crazy history. Before I joined FaZe, I ran a competitive sniping forum called Sniper Leaderboards. And these two little fucks, these two twin kids who were like 15 at the time, ran like our biggest competition. And we used to talk mad shit to each other, never saw their faces, hated these kids. And then years later, you know what I mean, I went and did my FaZe thing, and they were still doing well on the internet. And we kind of like reconnected. And around this time, Counter-Strike was kind of the game. And there were a lot of these like gambling websites with skins. Like, I don't know if you guys know anything about that, but there's like a currency in Counter-Strike and it's skins. There's a real market for it. And some of these skins, like a skin for like the sniper or like a knife or whatever, some of these go upwards of like $10,000 on the open market. Like people pay actual like $10,000 USD for a fucking little picture on a screen. And it makes no sense, but if you really like dive into like the mechanics of it, like you have to buy a case and then you have to buy a key and then you have a 1 in 10,000 chance to get this knife. So if you add it all up, the amount of money spent getting one of these skins, you know what I mean? Yeah. So there's a whole real market. It's a real thing. And you can trade these freely between, you know what I mean? I could send you one of these skins, whatever. So with that, people started creating these like gambling sites where you could gamble with these skins. And it was kind of like gray area because it's a skin in a game and there's no actual real like value to it. Like the government puts absolutely no value to it. So we came up with this idea with these kids. I came up with this idea for a different way to do it. And we branded it the right way. And my motivation for doing it actually was, at the time we weren't making enough money to buy a CSGO team. All in, the venture was going to cost us like $1 million, and we definitely did not have anything close to that. So my brain, like we got to finesse it. We got to figure out how to make the money to buy this team now, because in the next 6 months, a year, this team's gonna be worth like $4 or $5 million, and we're not gonna be able to get into this game, which in our heads we need to get in this game. So we create this website, and through our rake and all this shit, we were making like $200,000 a day. And we set it up in Antigua. We set it up in Antigua. I had a house in Antigua for like.
Where's that?
For like Antigua, like in the Caribbean.
Island, yeah.
Where?
It's an island.
It's one of those like islands where they.
The best.
It's an island in the Caribbean where
What?
Gambling. Where running a gambling website is completely legal if you have the permits and stuff to do it. So we flew there. We flew there private, sat down with the guy who runs the country, basically paid him like $100,000, and he gave us the license. And we had this whole estate, and we had guys with, because this place is fucking crazy. Yeah. Like, if you don't live at the top of the hill in one of these like crazy estate mansions, like you live in a favela, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And everything's fucking crazy. A bottle of water is like $5, and my buddy broke his iPhone out there and had to spend like 2 racks on it. And we had like a little shitty Jeep Cherokee that we were driving around. It cost us 80 G's. Like everything, it's just like this little like piece of land that like nobody gives a fuck about. Right. And there's no money to be made. So like, whatever.
So whatever indeed. Now, I'll take these off and we'll go back to a big screen. So as you can hear there, not only does Banks sort of say that him and these guys that he knows, Gagey and Zach, create this business. He talks about it from an operational perspective, talks about how they were running it, talks about how he himself went to Antigua and had a house out there, and then also divulges that it was making $200,000 a day, which as somebody that investigated all of these websites and broke numerous stories about them, that's modest. That's sort of in line with what you would expect most of these sites to be making. There were some sites that were probably pulling in more, honestly, just based on their popularity. CSGO Wild was popular. It wasn't at the very top of the heap, if you remember, though. So the first thing that you've got to say there is it sounds terrible. It sounds like this is an admission of Banks running this, and it's very clear how he says it. So I'll remind you about what was said at the time in just a moment, but I want to tell you a story. After I liked a few tweets, because I knew I was going to have to make a video about this. I like to keep my channel comprehensive when it comes to the news. FaZe Rain reached out to me, said he would answer some questions. So my questions were, well, you know, if he said he owned it, why did he deny it? You know, standard stuff. Things you would ask, right? We ended up in a call. It was me and Banks and Rain, and it went on for about 90 minutes, and it was pretty fucking boring and weird. And they couldn't remember any of the dates that were pertinent to the questions I had. They sort of deflected any critique of the FTC violations, of which I'll show you in a moment. But they ultimately, the one thing that I sort of was a little bit convinced about was that they weren't 100% in the driving seat on this. It sounded like it was a group of partners that came together to run a site. And basically, I think there was one guy at the top, a very sinister piece of shit, that pocketed most of the money. And a guy that I've got a pretty thick dossier on, but there's just not enough time to get these guys. Plus, there's international jurisdictions, and they might not have even broken laws. I've said it many, many times. I think the skins gambling, businesses were a huge criminal conspiracy committed against the gaming community. Everyone was linked and had ties. The same names come up time and time again, often as business partners, then later in opposition. We're seeing that now, by the way, with the owner of CSGO Empire and Mo, going back and forth when they used to work with each other. The whole thing was shady as fuck. It's why I stayed well away from it. But anyway, over the course of that conversation, I did sort of maybe think that they weren't as involved as Banks had said in this podcast, but we'll get to that in a second. Instead, let's take a look at what they said at the time. I can just get rid of that for you now, and we can go into it chronologically. So on July the 19th, this is when the scandal, if it could indeed be called that, was sort of like tumbling out, and they actually denied an ownership stake, okay? And you can see that FaZe Rain said, owner of FaZe Clan and only FaZe Clan, no matter what rumors you hear. FaZe Banks, I own FaZe Clan and a fat Dragonite, but that's it. And they were very adamant publicly that they had no ownership stake. Now, obviously, when you listen to that clip, and you sort of try and metabolize that information, it doesn't make sense, because Banks is talking about he's talking about setting up the business, he's talking about them making the money. So at best, it's incredibly poorly worded, and I'll let you guys be the judge by the time you get to the end of the video, just how involved he was or not. So we'll close that. As always, a twit longer's involved. I feel like 50% of my videos involve a twit longer. Apologies about the ads. The recording software doesn't block them, so you might have to find out which celebrities are gay again, which 10 celebrities are gay. Sorry. But anyway, you can see this is from CSGO Wild. This came out after Honor the Call was really pushing with his videos, and it said, it says, I didn't think I'd be making a public statement about the relationship between CSGO Wild and FaZe, but after consistent posts filled with untrue accusations and speculation, I figured it was time to tell the tale. First off, FaZe Clan and any of its members do not and have never owned any part of Wild. Team Wild, Inc., also known as CSGO Wild, is only owned by myself and my brother, Zach. Our incorporation documents can be addressed at this link. Members of the media wait tweet at stick for the password so they can be used appropriately. Now, at the time, I actually got that password. I looked at those articles of corporation. There's nobody from FaZe that is listed on those articles of incorporation. They're absolutely true. Now, that doesn't mean, by the way, there wasn't an agreement between the parties to, you go on the paperwork, we take a cut of the money because we're the ones with the promotion mechanism, and we keep a degree of separation that way. These, as you heard from the clip, are old friends of FaZe Banks. He's known them since they were kids. He's known them since he was slightly older himself. They do go way back. And not only that, they have lived in the FaZe house at various points. I think after CSGO Wild, sure, but it shows that the Clout House, this is, of course, it shows that they are pretty close. Anyway, In August of 2015, a few friends and I thought we'd make our own version of a CSGO jackpot website. We launched a beta of a game mode that was the first of its kind, a 1v1 jackpot. This later transitioned to deciding the winner over a coin flip. Soon after, we started to reach out to people with followings to get our new game recognized. Our first idea was to approach people we've been friends with for years through gaming and our work on YouTube. And you can see there, FaZe. I've known and been decent friends with Banks since before he had any sort of following, so I thought it'd be easiest to offer him and the team he managed at the time a deal where they could promote us to get ourselves off the ground. Now, I talked to Rain and I talked to Banks about the deal and the nature of the deal, and they couldn't give me any specifics. They couldn't tell me percentages. They couldn't tell me duration of the length of the agreement. They couldn't tell me even when the agreement stopped. They couldn't give me any dates. They said it's too far back. They don't remember any of it. They couldn't answer any of my questions, which also as well, if you know what was going on with Banks at the time, it's something he's been very open about. He was having serious mental health issues and had to spend some time in a facility to get better. This is another reason why I took my foot off the accelerator, because I do believe that it's unethical to apply pressure, even in a journalistic capacity, to somebody that's not very well. And I'm never going to be that guy. And there's examples of that where it's gone horribly wrong. And I don't want to ever contribute to that. So it's entirely plausible he doesn't remember. There was a lot going on in his life. I'm pretty sure he could find out, but ultimately there's no need for him to find out, is there? Because, this is all water under the bridge. The admissions, which, by the way, I even think he said this before on other podcasts, and it's just never blown up. These admissions don't really change anything. The FTC were notified at the time and chose not to investigate. Now, there might be enough here to trigger a new investigation because we've gone from non-disclosure sponsorship to potential ownership, a very different ballpark. But ultimately, there's no great revelatory information in this clip, honestly. Nothing I didn't already know, and nothing I don't think had been communicated to the public through various channels. The denials, ultimately, and the way they try to distance themselves are the only issue here in terms of this new revelation, because of the way Banks has worded it on this podcast. Anyway, once our beta was running, I showed him and asked him if he'd promote Wild in exchange for cash. He liked the idea of a coin flip and asked his team member FaZe Rain if he was interested. At the time, being able to win skins was a novel idea that had the community excited. Banks and Rain had also been playing on other sites at their own expense because they genuinely enjoyed it. It's true, when you have a lot of money, you do have a propensity to gamble. Both released videos on their channels featuring other sites. This is also true. After some back and forth, we worked out a sponsorship, Block Capital's deal. Banks, Rain, and a few of the team members got paid in return for promotion. They were paid in cash, skins, and emeralds to be used to bet with on our website. And we chose to see serving US users... we'll come to that in a second after we chose. So they were paid cash, skins, and emeralds to be used to bet on the website. This is nothing in and of itself that we didn't know. What was interesting was when I talked to Rain and Banks about it, they couldn't remember how much it was. In fact, they said they didn't even get any money, and in a lot of ways, they themselves were victims of a scam as well. Which I'm sure it's hard to sympathize, but if you're promoting something in good faith, even if it's unethical and questionable, as long as you're not doing anything illegal and you're not violating FTC guidelines, you should get paid for your work. So they couldn't even tell me how much money they got from this, whether they'd made any money from this. They think they got ripped off by another party. But the issue there is sponsorship. They described it as a revenue share. And the way, and as I'll show you as well from some DMs that people seem to have forgotten about, it looked like Banks was involved operationally, which is a problem because you can't say, I didn't own it, but I did sort of essentially run the business aspect of it and delegate tasks and responsibilities. Then it goes on anyway to say that they chose to cease and desist when the letter went out from Valve. And also they say that they've never altered game results or provided future roles for promoters. Now, that in itself might be believable. I certain there's not a wealth of evidence of that, but there are some videos where if you look at them, they just don't look particularly real. The reactions are terrible. I'll show you one you can all have a look at here.
So we're on a gambling website, it's CSGO Wild, and I have $5,000, right? I have $5,000.
It's about $5,000, like real dollars. I mean, maybe like 4 or 5. But
and I'm gonna sit on this website and I'm gonna just gamble. I'm gonna try to win money and see just how it goes.
And also, if you guys didn't know, just because he doesn't really know completely how the site works, but if you click on deposit skins or buy skins, you can actually, like, you know, like sell your skins to the site for emeralds and then buy more skins and then sell those on OP skins and make real money. So I've actually sold skins before, and it's time to help you sell some skins.
Let's
and
do it.
Make
Let's do
some
it,
money
little
off
guy.
this. Let's get it, dude.
You ready?
I'm fucking
How do I do
ready.
it?
All right.
I go here, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
how much do you want to start with? What do you? how much-
100. Let's start with
$100?
Farts! I lost $500. I knew I should.
Say.
Alright, guys, I just put another 1,000 on the wild coin, okay? If it lands on this, like I said last time, I get 14,000.
14 grand if he hits us.
Here we go. Here we go. Come on. Come on. Oh my god! It was one away.
Bro, 1 off!
I would have got fucking. What the fuck?
Okay. Dude, I don't even know what the fuck just happened.
I lost, but I
He
just,
lost, but he got money.
I lost, but I just won $7 grand.
Out of no, we don't even know how. I swear to God,
Look
this
at
is
this.
so random.
I had 5,000 here. Now I have 12,000.
We don't know what the fuck this.
Okay,
How did that
okay.
even happen?
I'm gonna
What's
do
that?
a big bet. I'm gonna put 4 fucking thousand on gold. Just randomly got 7K.
You randomly got 7K.
So I should
Fuck
I-
it, dude.
I'm putting fucking shades.
Bro,
I will shit my pants.
You win a Hyundai Genesis.
I thought I had 8K.
You
and now-
did.
And now I have a 19K.
Why the fuck is this happening?
I don't know.
He's just randomly getting so many emeralds out of fucking nowhere.
Okay, hold
Why
on,
is
wait.
this-
Let's see if I get 2 grand right here. Give it to me. Give it. Yes.
Yes.
Let's
But
go.
like, what's happening?
20 grand.
How is this happen? I had to actually gamble for my winnings. How are you doing this?
I don't know. Should I just
happening?
fuck around and throw another few thousand on Wild?
Fuck it, dude.
Okay,
Put
dude.
5K up.
5K, dude.
Fuck it, dude.
I've been, dude. How is this happening? Like
No, you clicked on T. Oh no.
on T?
Yeah.
I didn't put it on
No, you
Wild.
put it on T. Dude,
Oh.
if it hits Wild, I'm leaving, dude. I'm just out of here.
If it lands on Wild, I will be so butthurt.
Dude, imagine it lands on Wild this one time.
Oh, I got it though.
Oh,
That's 10 grand.
That's another
That's
5K.
10 grand.
What the fuck?
Right? That's 10 grand, right?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Bro, you're up to 26K.
Shit.
So I'll just add, now that you've seen those clips, yeah, there's that weird thing, isn't there, where it looks like he's lost and then he wins and money appears in his account and they just kind of go, oh, God, isn't that weird? I'd say the acting's a little bit underwhelming in general, but also there's the unethical aspect of the fact that they are making it look like an idiot that knows absolutely nothing about gambling can simply sit down at a website and win tens of thousands of dollars as if that's the normal experience. Of course, even on coin flip websites, it isn't. And I would say it's unethical, irresponsible, potentially goes against guidelines in the realm of gambling to represent it as being the case. And on top of that, the FTC issue rears its head again, because even to this day, this video is still on YouTube, by the way. You can go and look at this yourself. It doesn't say that it is a sponsored video initially in the drop down. If you go right the way into the description and you go further into it, still doesn't say that it is a sponsored video. And I'm assuming it was. So as I've said before, I am not an acting coach, so it's not up to me to say whether that proves or disproves anything or whether that reaction's genuine or not. I know what I believe. You can make up your own mind based on that clip. Now, the other thing, of course, is they go on to talk about Antigua. You heard Banks talking about it, how he went there, how he was there when they paid a guy $100,000 to get a license. Indeed, there is more to it than just the fact that it is like a tax haven, and it's very hard to get articles of incorporation and other documentation from there. On top of that, it is something where you can sort of legally register and run an online gambling site, which does seem to have been the principal reason to go there. That the fact that I think all the people that set up these sites were looking at loopholes, and if you had the money to go to Antigua and register a site there. Why not do that? It would make you almost untouchable. You might not be able to operate in the US, but certainly they wouldn't be able to say that you operate, because you operate in the US, that they could shut you down, say you did it illegally, all of that stuff. So anyway, they then go on to call everyone fake news and blah, 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 as was par for the course at the time. Now, just also to add a little bit further to this, people do seem to have forgot that at the start of the website, Banks was heavily involved operationally. He absolutely was. You can see, if I show you this, this is a screenshot, which I'll scale it down. You'll have to apologize. These are super old, so I'll scale these down. This is a screenshot last summer from someone called Ryan Nolan. It says, last year, I was contacted by my friend Sinstone to create a CSGO website for FaZe called CSGO Wild. I'll show you some of the Twitter convos. And we saw the Twitter combos, but after that, the designer went on, you can see here, Skype, added Banks. It was Banks he added. Banks was the contact for the site. And then he gave him Gage's contact. He connected him with him. And if you go and look at the initial chat, this is add Gage. He'll be who you work with on this. Please give it your best. It's simple stuff. Thanks, man. Gage will answer any questions you have and get you all the tools you'll need for the project. He'll be who you work with from today. Awesome. Thank you. Now, all of that obviously suggests that Banks had a degree of operational input, that there was something on his part where he was in charge of it initially, and probably because, I don't know, he has a wider reach than Gagey and the people he knows from CSGO Wild. That could be an argument. But equally, he is saying in all these things, hey, listen, I'm delegating you to a project and I'm delegating you to this guy over here. So it doesn't look good. I've said this multiple times. I think there's enough. There was always enough there for an FTC investigation. And what this screenshot shows is a video on FaZe Rain's YouTube channel. How to win $30,000 in 5 seconds. Obviously, a bit clickbaity, a little bit misleading. That in itself might be problematic for many. You can see So Lucky. Use code RAIN here. FaZe Banks Rain merch, etc., etc. Now, at nowhere in this video does it disclose that he is being sponsored, he has any association with the company, and that is an issue because you are supposed to do that according to the FTC guidelines. This video was later changed from how to win $30,000 in 5 seconds to I got so lucky, and then it was added in the description below as this is a sponsored video, and then the video was deleted. And when I talked to Rain about it, he said he couldn't even remember who removed the video. And obviously it was clearly him. I mean, you know, it certainly wasn't YouTube or anybody else. But that he then also said that, well, I was 17 and I didn't know I had to do these disclosures. Now I'll just add to that point. Ignorance sort of isn't a defense. If you are an influencer, you have a responsibility to know what the rules that you're bound by are. And I'm pretty sure he knows now, but that doesn't change it. There was always enough for an FTC investigation. I don't know why they didn't. They certainly investigated T. Martin and Syndicate and certainly took action against those guys. I don't know why they didn't take action against the other guys. I still don't know to this day. Now, whether this will change that, I don't know. It's highly unlikely. All things told, I think there's a much murkier story here and probably one that'll come out maybe many years from now. Ultimately, what Banks said didn't come as a surprise to me. I got to be honest. I don't necessarily think he's the hand that rocks the cradle. Equally, I don't think he was just sponsored either. It certainly looks to have been his idea. He looks to have been partially the driving force behind the website. And I imagine got paid something for that and made some money. It's a clusterfuck. It's so hard to go back now and get all that information that I don't expect we'll ever truly get to the bottom of who owned what and what agreements were in place. I think tracks have been covered pretty well, and you'll just have to assess for yourselves based on the evidence that's out there. What I would say is, though, I wouldn't certainly be going around now if I was these guys or a guy that owned a site back then or anything like that, coming out and talking openly about how much money we made. Probably want to leave that well alone. Probably don't want that going on the government radar or the FTC radar as gaming and esports gets bigger and bigger. Anyway, I've been Richard Lewis. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope that summarized everything you need to know about the FaZe Bank situation and CSGO Wild and all of that. And of course, we've had huge growth on the channel again. I'm super grateful for all of it. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe, do all of that good stuff, and take care of yourselves until the next time. Peace.